On a crisp autumn morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a family was startled awake by their golden retriever, Max's frantic barking, as he dragged his favorite blanket through the doggy door and into the backyard. What they discovered when they followed him would change their lives forever and touch the hearts of millions around the world. If you love stories that remind us of the incredible intuition of animals and their capacity for compassion, please subscribe to our channel. Now, so you never miss another heartwarming tale that proves our four-legged companions are sometimes the greatest heroes of all. The Peterson family had adopted Max from a local shelter 3 years earlier, a decision that seemed ordinary at the time, but would prove to be nothing short of miraculous on this particular morning. As they stumbled sleepily into the yard still, in their pajamas, they heard a sound that made their hearts stop, the unmistakable mewling of newborn kittens hidden beneath their faithful dog's carefully arranged blanket. Sarah Peterson stared in disbelief at the tiny creatures squirming beneath Max's blanket. 5 minuscule kittens, their eyes still sealed, shut their bodies no larger than the palm of her hand. "Michael," she called, her voice barely above a whisper. "Come look at this." Her husband knelt beside her, their children Emma and Tyler crowding close behind. "They can't be more than a day or 2 old," Michael said gently, touching one of the kittens with his fingertip. "Where's their mother?" That question spurred them into action. While Michael carefully gathered the kittens, keeping them wrapped in Max's blanket, Sarah and the children began searching the yard and surrounding area. Max paced anxiously between the kittens and the search party, whining softly. "Mom, look." Emma called, pointing to a small gap beneath their garden shed. "I think there are paw prints here." Sarah examined the area, finding distinct cat tracks in the soft dirt. "Good eye, Emma," she said. "This must be where the mother cat was staying." They expanded their search to the neighboring yards, calling softly for any sign of a nursing cat. Tyler spotted more evidence: a food bowl on the porch of an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. "Oh yes," Mrs. Jenkins confirmed when they knocked on her door. "A stray started coming around a few weeks ago. Pretty little calico. I've been leaving food out for her." "Was she pregnant?" Sarah asked. Mrs. Jenkins nodded. "She certainly looked it, but I haven't seen her since yesterday morning." The family continued their search, growing increasingly concerned as the hours passed. The newborn kittens would need their mother soon. They couldn't survive long without her. Back at home, Michael had created a makeshift nest, using a small box lined with towels and a heating pad set on low. Max refused to leave the box sitting, vigilant beside it, his eyes tracking every tiny movement of the kittens. "We need to keep looking," Sarah insisted, after checking on the kittens. "They'll need to eat soon." Michael nodded grimly. "I'll take the car and check a wider area. You stay with the kids and the kittens." 2 hours later, Michael returned his expression, telling Sarah everything before he spoke. "I found her," he said quietly, pulling her aside away from the children. "About 3 blocks away near the main road. She was hit by a car." Sarah closed her eyes, grief washing over her. "Are you sure it's the same cat? Calico, just like Mrs. Jenkins described. And she—" He hesitated, glancing toward the children. "She was still producing milk. It has to be their mother." They stood in silence, absorbing the weight of the situation. "What do we tell the kids?" Sarah finally asked. "The truth," Michael replied, but gently, gathering Emma and Tyler in the living room while Max continued his vigil over the kittens. Michael explained what had happened. 10-year-old Emma's eyes filled with tears, while 7-year-old Tyler looked confused. "But who will feed the kittens now?" Tyler asked. "Don't they need their mom?" "We'll have to help them," Sarah explained. "But it's going to be very hard. These kittens are so young, they might not survive even with our help." "We have to try," Emma insisted, wiping her tears. "We can't just let them die." Sarah called the local veterinarian, explaining their situation. Dr. Martinez agreed to see them immediately. Bring the kittens in right away, she instructed. Newborns are extremely fragile. At the clinic, Dr. Martinez examined each kitten carefully. They're about 2 days old, she confirmed. All appear to be from the same litter, 3 females, 2 males. She weighed each one, frowning at the smallest. This little female is underweight. She's the runt of the litter. Can they survive without their mother? Sarah asked. The question they all feared to hear answered. Dr. Martinez's expression was serious. I won't sugarcoat this. Hand-raising newborn kittens is incredibly difficult. They need feeding every 2 hours around the clock. They can't regulate their body temperature or even eliminate waste on their own. The mortality rate is very high, especially for the smallest one. Emma clutched her father's hand. But it's possible, right? They could live? The vet smiled gently at her. Yes, it's possible with proper care. I've seen it done. She turned to Sarah and Michael. Are you prepared for this commitment? It will be like having 5 newborn babies for the next several weeks. Michael and Sarah exchanged looks, having a silent conversation in the way only couples married for 15 years could. Sarah nodded slightly, and Michael turned to the vet. We'll do whatever it takes. Dr. Martinez provided them with special kitten formula bottles with tiny nipples, detailed instructions, and demonstrated how to stimulate the kittens to eliminate. After feeding, call me anytime, she said as they prepared to leave, day or night. These first 2 weeks are the most critical as they gathered the box of kittens to leave. Max, who had been waiting patiently in the car, became agitated when they approached. He's been so strange about these kittens, Sarah remarked. It's like he feels responsible for them. Dr. Martinez observed the dog's behavior with interest. Has he been around cats before? Not since we've had him, Michael answered. We adopted him from Riverside Shelter 3 years ago. He was about 2 then. Something flickered in the vet's expression. Riverside? I volunteer there sometimes. Let me make a call. While they waited with the kittens, Dr. Martinez spoke quietly on the phone. When she returned, her eyes were wide with surprise. I just spoke with Carol, the shelter manager. She remembers Max's case very clearly. He was found abandoned in a foreclosed house along with a mother cat and her kittens. He had apparently been living with them for some time, protecting them, until they were discovered. The family stared at Max in amazement. The golden retriever was now peering anxiously into the box of kittens, whining softly. He remembers, Emma whispered. He knows what to do because he's done it before. As they drove home with their precious cargo, Sarah looked back at the children, each holding the box of kittens between them, while Max pressed close, keeping watch. We're in for a challenging few weeks, she said softly to Michael. Or longer, Michael replied, equally quiet. You realize the kids are already attached. Giving these kittens up won't be easy if they survive. Sarah nodded, watching as Max Lee gently nosed the edge of the box. If they survive, she echoed, her heart heavy with both hope and fear. The first night with the kittens was a blur of 2-hour feeding cycles, exhaustion, and worry. Sarah and Michael took turns heating, formula testing the temperature on their wrists, and carefully feeding each tiny kitten with the special bottles. After each feeding, they had to gently rub the kittens' lower bodies with a warm washcloth, mimicking a mother cat's tongue to stimulate them to eliminate waste. Max refused to leave the nursery they had set up in the laundry room. They placed his bed next to the large plastic container that now housed the kittens with its carefully regulated heating pad and soft blankets. But Max wouldn't use his bed. Instead, he lay beside the container, his eyes rarely leaving the tiny creatures, his body alert to their every sound. It's 3 a.m, Michael whispered, coming into the laundry room for the middle of the night. Feeding? You should be sleeping too, buddy. Max simply thumped his tail against the floor, his eyes never leaving the kittens. The smallest kitten, the runt they had started calling Hope, was struggling the most. While her siblings latched onto the tiny bottles with surprising strength, Hope barely sucked, requiring Sarah to drip formula into her mouth a drop at a time. After each feeding, Sarah would hold the tiny kitten against her chest, willing hers. To survive, she's so small, Emma said, watching her mother feed Hope the next morning. School had been canceled for the day as the family adjusted to their new responsibilities. She is, Sarah agreed. But she's a fighter. See how she keeps trying even when it's hard. After Sarah finished feeding Hope and stimulating her. To eliminate, she placed the kitten back in the container with her siblings. To everyone's surprise, Max immediately stuck his nose into the container and gently nudged Hope, separating her slightly from the others. Max, no. Sarah started to scold but stopped when she saw what happened next. The golden retriever began to lick the tiny kitten with gentle, careful strokes of his tongue. Hope squirmed under the attention, but then settled as Max continued his methodical grooming. He's cleaning her, Tyler said with awe, just like a mommy cat would. Sarah watched in amazement. I've never seen anything like this. Throughout the day, they observed as Max took on more and more responsibilities for the kittens. He would alert the family with a specific whine when the kittens became restless, signaling feeding time. After each feeding, he would carefully clean each kitten, paying special attention to Hope. If any kittens squirmed too close to the edge of their container, Max would gently nudge them back to safety. I did some research on what Carol from the shelter told us, Michael said that evening as they prepared for another night of feedings. Apparently, Max was found in that foreclosed house with a mother cat and 4 kittens. They think he had been caring for them for at least a week before they were discovered. Do dogs normally do that? Emma asked, watching as Max lay with his head resting on the edge of the kitten's container. Not usually, Michael explained. Dogs and cats are often natural adversaries, but there are documented cases of animals adopting orphans of different species. It's rare, though. Max is special, Tyler declared with the absolute certainty only a 7-year-old could possess. That night, Sarah woke, suddenly realizing she had fallen asleep and missed the 2 a.m. feeding. Panicked, she rushed to the laundry room, only to find Michael already there, bottle in hand, staring at a remarkable scene. Max had somehow managed to climb into the large container and was curled around the 5 kittens, his body providing warmth, his tongue occasionally darting out to groom one or another of them. The kittens were nestled against his fur, sleeping peacefully. I came in and found him like this, Michael whispered. I was going to move him, but they seem so content, Sarah nodded, tears springing to her eyes. Let's leave him. We'll still do the feeding, but maybe he knows what they need more than we do. By the 3rd day, they had fallen into a routine. Sarah had taken emergency family leave from her job as an elementary school counselor, while Michael rearranged his work schedule as a graphic designer to handle the night feedings. Emma and Tyler helped after school, watching in fascination as the kittens grew stronger day by day, all except Hope. The smallest kitten continued to struggle, barely gaining weight despite their best efforts. On the 5th day, Sarah noticed Hope wasn't moving as much as her siblings, her tiny body cooler despite the heating pad. I'm worried about Hope, she told Michael that evening. She's not responding as well today. Michael examined the tiny kitten, his face serious. Let's call Dr. Martinez. The vet suggested bringing Hope in immediately. The others can stay home with Max, but I want to check this little one right away. Sarah gently placed Hope in a small carrier lined with a soft towel. As they prepared to leave, Max became agitated, pacing and whining. It's okay, boy, Sarah tried to reassure him. We're taking her to get help, but Max was inconsolable, barking and scratching at the door as they left with Hope at the veterinary clinic. Dr. Martinez examined Hope thoroughly, her expression growing more concerned. Her body temperature is too low, she's dehydrated, and she's not gaining weight. These are all bad signs in a kitten this young. What can we do? Sarah asked, fighting back tears. Dr. Martinez sighed. We can try supplemental fluids and tube feeding, but honestly, kittens this small without their mother, the chances aren't good, Sarah. I think you should prepare yourself and the children. Sarah held the tiny kitten in her hands, feeling the faint, rapid heartbeat. She's not giving up, she said finally. So neither will we. They returned home with Hope and additional medical supplies. Michael met them at the door, his expression questioning. Sarah shook her head slightly, letting him know the news wasn't good. As soon as they entered, Max was there, his entire body quivering with anxiety. Sarah knelt down, opening the carrier. She's still with us, Max, she said softly. But she needs extra help. Max sniffed the carrier, whining softly. When Sarah placed Hope back in the container with her siblings, Max immediately jumped in, settling his body around the kittens and focusing his attention on Hope. He began to lick her tiny form with long, gentle strokes, his body curled protectively. Around her, that night, no one suggested removing Max from the container. If Hope's time was limited, they wouldn't deny her the comfort of her adopted guardian. The family took turns checking through the night, expecting each time to find that Hope had slipped away. But morning came, and Hope was still there, still breathing, still fighting. And Max was still with her, still grooming, still protecting. Hour by hour, they continued the battle for Hope's life, while her guardian refused to leave her side. Day 7 arrived with a small miracle. Hope was still alive. Not only alive, but she had finally gained a few precious grams of weight. Her siblings were growing steadily, their tiny bodies filling out, their eyes still closed, but their movements becoming more coordinated. The family celebrated each small victory in the kitten's development, with Max seeming to share in their joy. I need to document this, Sarah said one morning, watching as Max gently cleaned the kittens after their feeding. No one would believe it without seeing it. She took out her phone and began recording as Max methodically groomed each kitten, paying special attention to Hope. He seemed to know exactly how much pressure to use with his tongue, never too rough with their delicate bodies. When he finished cleaning them, he curled his large form around the tiny creatures, creating a protective barrier against the world. It's like he's their mother, father, and bodyguard all in one, Sarah narrated softly. He barely leaves them even to eat or go outside. Later that evening, after the children were in bed, Sarah uploaded the short video to her social media account. Animal lovers, I had to share this incredible sight, she wrote. Our rescue. Dog Max has adopted these orphaned kittens and is raising them as his own. Their mother was killed, and at just 2 days old, we weren't sure they would survive. Especially the smallest one we call Hope. But Max hasn't left their side. The vet says it's extremely rare for a dog to take on this role. Nature is full of surprises, and love comes in many forms. She added a few hashtags. Rescue dog, Sarah Adopt Shop, Shock Animal Heroes, and went to bed exhausted from another day of round-the-clock kitten care. Sarah woke the next morning to her phone buzzing incessantly. Bleary-eyed, she checked the screen and gasped. Her video had thousands of shares overnight, and her social media notifications were overwhelming. Michael, she called, shaking her husband awake. Something's happening with the video I posted. Michael sat up, rubbing his eyes. What video? Of Max and the kittens. I put it up last night, and it's going viral. Together they scrolled through the notifications, comments, and shares. People from around the world were reacting to Max's devotion to the orphaned kittens. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm literally crying right now. That dog deserves a medal. Please keep us updated on Hope's progress. Sarah's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Hesitantly, she answered. Is this Sarah Peterson? A professional voice asked. This is Rebecca Wilson from Good Morning America. We've seen your incredible video of your dog caring for orphaned kittens, and we'd love to feature your story on our show. Sarah nearly dropped the phone. Good Morning America, the TV show? More calls followed throughout the day. Local news stations, national morning shows, animal websites, and magazines, all wanting to tell the story of Max and his adopted kittens. "What do we do?" Sarah asked Michael as they sat stunned at their kitchen table. "I never expected this kind of reaction," Michael considered carefully. "We need to think about what's best for the kittens and for Max. Too much disruption could stress them all, especially Hope." They decided to limit media access, agreeing only to a brief interview with their local news station and providing updates through Sarah's social media account. "We're just focusing on keeping these little ones alive," Sarah told the reporter, who came to their home that afternoon. Max is the real hero here. The reporter filmed Max with the kittens, capturing his gentle care and protective nature. And the smallest one, Hope. "How is she doing?" the reporter asked. "Every day with her is a gift," Sarah answered honestly. "She's fighting hard, and Max never gives up on her. He seems to know she needs extra attention." The segment aired on the evening news and was quickly picked up by national outlets. By the next morning, the Peterson family had become overnight celebrities, their story touching hearts across the country. Emma and Tyler were both excited and confused by the sudden attention. "Does this mean Max is famous?" Tyler asked at breakfast. "I guess it does, buddy," Michael answered, ruffling his son's hair. "But he's still the same Max. He just doesn't know the whole world is watching him now." As if understanding he was being discussed, Max padded into the kitchen, pausing to check that the kittens were still sleeping peacefully in their container, which had been moved to the living room for the day. Satisfied they were safe, he accepted a quick scratch behind the ears from Michael before returning to his post. "He's so dedicated," Emma observed. "He only leaves them for a few minutes at a time." The family had adjusted their routine to accommodate Max's new role. Michael would take him for quick bathroom breaks in the yard. Sarah would bring his food and water next to the kitten's container, and they all took turns sitting with both Max and the kittens, keeping them company. During the long hours of care, by the 10th day, the video had been viewed millions of times. Animal rescue organizations began sharing it as an example of the special bonds that could form between different species. Donations poured into shelters in Max's name. The Riverside shelter, where Max had been adopted, reported a surge in applications specifically for older dogs. "You've started a movement," Carol, the shelter manager, told Sarah during a phone call. "People are coming in asking for a dog like Max. We've had more older dogs adopted in the past week than in the previous 3 months combined." Sarah was overwhelmed by the impact of their story. "We never intended any of this," she told Michael that night. "I just wanted to share something beautiful." "Sometimes that's all it takes," he replied. People are hungry for good news, for proof that the world can still be kind. Email requests began flooding in, book offers, documentary proposals, merchandise licensing. The Peterson family felt increasingly uncomfortable with the commercialization of what they saw as a natural miracle. "We're not going to exploit Max or the kittens," Michael declared firmly after yet another business proposition arrived. "This isn't about money or fame," Sarah agreed, but still felt a responsibility to the thousands of people now invested in their story. "These people care about Hope and her siblings. They're rooting for them. I think we owe them updates. At least." So Sarah continued posting daily photos and short videos documenting the kittens' progress. She shared their triumphs and setbacks, their growing strength and personalities, and always, Max's unwavering devotion. As the second week with the kittens came to a close, Hope had defied the odds and was still fighting, still growing, though still significantly smaller than her siblings. And the world was watching, holding its collective breath for the tiny kitten and the devoted dog who refused to give up on her. The kittens reached their 2-week milestone, a critical point in their development. The 4 larger kittens were thriving, their eyes beginning to open, their tiny bodies plump and active. But Hope remained a constant concern. Though she had survived against the odds, She was still significantly smaller than her siblings, her development lagging behind. Her eyes should be opening by now, Sarah worried, examining the tiny kitten during her evening feeding. The others are already starting to see, but hers are still completely closed. Michael watched over her shoulder. She's always been behind the others. Maybe she just needs more time. Hope took the formula from the tiny bottle with less enthusiasm than usual, her suckling weak and inconsistent. Sarah felt a knot of fear form in her stomach. After coming so far, was hope beginning to fade? That night, Sarah woke at 2 a.m. for the usual feeding, but found Michael already up, his face tight with concern. "She's not doing well," he said simply. Hope lay listless in the feeding box, barely responding when Sarah tried to give her formula. Her tiny body felt cooler than it should despite the heating pad, her breathing shallow and rapid. Max paced anxiously around them, whining softly, nosing at Hope with gentle insistence. "We need to call Dr. Martinez," Sarah said, already reaching for her phone. The emergency call to the veterinarian confirmed their fears. "Bring her in immediately." Dr. Martinez instructed, "It sounds like she might be crashing." Leaving the other kittens in Max's care with Emma, to supervise Sarah and Michael rushed Hope to the 24-hour veterinary hospital. The tiny kitten barely moved during the frantic drive, her condition deteriorating. With each passing minute, Dr. Martinez was waiting for them, whisking Hope away for immediate treatment. "Her body temperature is dangerously low," she explained, "and she's severely dehydrated. We need to warm her slowly and get fluids into her system." Sarah and Michael sat in the sterile waiting room holding hands in silence. The clock on the wall seemed to move with agonizing slowness. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Martinez returned her expression grave. "We've stabilized her for now," she said, "but I have to be honest with you. Her condition is very serious. She has a congenital heart defect that we've just discovered on ultrasound. It explains why she's been struggling more than her siblings." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. "A heart defect? Can it be treated?" Dr. Martinez sighed. "In an older, stronger kitten, possibly, but at this age with her size, the risks of intervention are extremely high. And even without treatment, the defect itself may prove fatal." Michael's voice was steady, though his hand trembled in Sarah's. "What are her chances?" "With aggressive, supportive care, maybe 20%. I wish I could offer more hope for Hope," she added, with a sad smile. "What do we do now?" Sarah asked, feeling tears threaten. "We can keep her here on fluids and oxygen, monitoring her closely. Or?" Dr. Martinez hesitated. "Or what?" Michael prompted. "Or you can take her home to be with her siblings and your dog. Sometimes in these cases, comfort and familiar surroundings can be more beneficial than medical intervention, especially if the prognosis is this guarded." Sarah and Michael exchanged a look, having another of their silent conversations. "Max hasn't left her side since we found them," Sarah said finally. "If these might be her last hours, I think she should be with him." "Doctor." Martinez nodded. "I understand. Let me give you some subcutaneous fluids to administer and some special high-calorie supplement. If she makes it through the next 24 hours, we'll reassess." They returned home in the early hours of the morning, Hope's tiny body nestled against Sarah's chest in a special warming carrier. Emma had fallen asleep beside the kitten's container, her hand resting on Max's back. The dog leapt up as soon as they entered his nose, twitching frantically, seeking Hope. "She's here, Max," Sarah said softly, kneeling down. "She's very sick, boy." With infinite care, she placed Hope back with her siblings in the container. Max immediately jumped in, curling his body around all 5 kittens, but focusing his attention on Hope. He began to lick her tiny form with long, gentle strokes, his warm breath washing over her as if willing his own strength into her failing body. "Should we move the other kittens?" Michael asked, watching this display of devotion. "Give Hope some space?" Sarah shook her head. "No, I think she needs them too. Their warmth, their sounds, their smell, everything familiar. That night, no one in the Peterson house really slept. They took turns sitting with Max and the kittens, watching Hope's shallow breathing, expecting each moment to be her last. Max refused food and water, his entire being focused on the tiny life beside him. Tyler was especially affected by Hope's condition. The 7-year-old boy sat cross-legged beside the container for hours, speaking softly to the kittens and to Max. "You can't give up hope," he told the golden retriever with the simple wisdom of childhood. "That's why we named her that, because we don't give up." As dawn broke, Hope was still alive, barely but fighting. Sarah administered the subcutaneous fluids as Dr. Martinez had shown her, watching the tiny bulge of liquid slowly absorb into Hope's dehydrated body. Max observed this procedure with intense focus, never interfering but clearly monitoring every action. By midday, there was a subtle change. Hope moved slightly, her tiny paw stretching out to touch Max's nose. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor, his eyes never leaving the kitten. "Did you see that?" Emma whispered. She moved on her own. They gathered around, watching, with bated breath as Hope squirmed weakly against Max's warm fur. Then came the moment they had been waiting for. Hope's eyelids, which had remained stubbornly shut, while her siblings' eyes had opened, began to quiver and part. Just a tiny slit at first, but definitely open. "She's seeing the world." Sarah breathed, tears streaming down her face. "She's finally opening her eyes." Max whined softly, his tail now thumping steadily as Hope's eyes opened further, revealing tiny blue irises. The kitten's gaze seemed to focus directly on Max, as if the first thing she wanted to see in this world was her protector. Dr. Martinez was cautiously optimistic when Sarah called with the update. "The fact that she's reached this developmental milestone is encouraging," she said. "But we're not out of the woods yet. That heart condition is still a serious concern." Throughout the day, Hope continued to show small but significant improvements. She took formula from the bottle with more enthusiasm, her tiny body seeming to find new reserves of strength. The family maintained their vigil, hardly daring to hope, yet unable to stop themselves. "Do you think Max knew?" Emma asked, watching, as the dog continued his gentle ministrations. "Do you think he somehow sensed that she needed extra help because of her heart?" Sarah looked at the golden retriever who had devoted himself so completely to these tiny orphans, especially the smallest, most vulnerable one. "I think animals understand things we don't," she said finally. "Max has known what Hope needed all along." As night fell again, Hope was still with them, still fighting, still proving that sometimes the smallest creatures have the greatest determination. And Max remained her constant guardian, never wavering in his belief that this tiny life was worth protecting no matter the odds. 3 days after Hope's crisis, she was still improving, defying Dr. Martinez's cautious prognosis. The tiny kitten's eyes were now fully open, her body still small but visibly stronger. She had even begun to crawl, albeit with less coordination than her siblings. Max continued his devoted care, though he now allowed himself short breaks to eat and go outside when Sarah or Michael insisted. On the morning of the kitten's 18th day, the Petersons received an unexpected email. "My name is Dr. Eleanor Wright." It read, "I'm a professor of animal behavior at the university's veterinary school. I've been following your story with great interest and would very much like to observe and document Max's interactions with the kittens. This type of cross-species caregiving is extremely rare and could provide valuable insights for our understanding of animal cognition and empathy." Sarah read the email aloud to Michael. "What do you think? She seems legitimate." I looked her up, and she's published several books on canine behavior, Michael considered. "It might be interesting to understand more about what Max is doing. As long as she doesn't disrupt the kittens or stress Max out, they agreed to a visit. Arranging for Dr. Wright to come the following afternoon, Sarah spent the morning tidying the house, suddenly self-conscious about the lived-in chaos that had become normal during their weeks of round-the-clock kitten care. Dr. Wright arrived precisely on time. A tall woman with silver-streaked hair, pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes behind practical glasses. She carried a small bag of equipment and greeted the family warmly. "Thank you so much for allowing me to observe this remarkable situation," she said. "I've studied animal behavior for 30 years, and cases like this are exceptionally rare and valuable to our understanding." The children watched with interest as Dr. Wright set up a small camera on a tripod and prepared a notebook. "Are you going to make Max famous?" Tyler asked. Dr. Wright smiled. "He's already quite famous from what I understand. I'm more interested in understanding why he's behaving this way. What motivates a dog to care for another species in this manner?" She settled on the floor at a respectful distance from Max and the kitten's enclosure, which had been upgraded to a large playpen now that the kittens were becoming more mobile. Max eyed her warily at first, but soon returned his attention to his charges, seeming to accept her presence. For the next several hours, Dr. Wright observed and took notes, occasionally asking quiet questions about Max's history and behaviors. She watched with particular interest as Max gently corrected a kitten who strayed too close to the edge of the pen, using his nose to nudge it back to safety. "Remarkable," she murmured. "He's not just providing warmth and grooming. He's actively teaching them boundaries." Sarah sat nearby, feeding Hope her special formula. "Is what he's doing really that unusual? I mean, we know he was found with a cat and kittens before." Dr. Wright nodded. That previous experience likely created a template for this behavior, but still it's extraordinarily rare. Dogs and cats have different parenting styles, different ways of communicating. Yet Max has adapted his natural behaviors to accommodate their needs. She pointed to Max's gentle mouth movements as he picked up one of the kittens that had rolled onto its back. "See how delicately he's using his mouth?" Dogs carrying puppies grip them firmly by the scruff, but he's modified his technique, making it gentler for the kittens' more fragile bodies. That shows both intelligence and empathy. As the afternoon progressed, Dr. Wright's excitement grew. She documented Max's different vocalizations when interacting with the kittens, his body language, his cleaning techniques, and especially his attentiveness to Hope. "He knows she's vulnerable," Dr. Wright observed, watching Max curl protectively around the smallest kitten. "He's prioritizing her care consistently. In the wild, this behavior would be counterintuitive. Resources typically go to the strongest offspring with the best chance of survival. But Max isn't wild," Emma pointed out. "He's family." Dr. Wright smiled at the girl. "Precisely. Domestication has allowed for the development of behaviors that might not serve evolutionary purposes, but do serve emotional and social ones. Max has formed a bond with these kittens that transcends instinct." When Hope began to mew softly, Max immediately responded, his entire demeanor changing. He began to lick her, stimulating her as a mother cat would. "He's helping her eliminate waste," Dr. Wright explained to the children. "Notice how he's mimicking exactly what a mother cat would do." He must have observed this behavior during his previous experience with cats. Michael, who had been quiet during most of the observation, finally asked, "So, is this just because of his past experience, or is Max special somehow?" Dr. Wright considered the question. "Both, I think. His past created the knowledge base, but many dogs with similar experiences wouldn't take on this role. There's something in Max's particular temperament, his patience, his gentleness, his attentiveness, that makes him uniquely suited to this role. You might say he has a natural talent for nurturing." As evening approached, Dr. Wright packed her equipment. "Would you permit me to return for additional observations?" she asked. "Perhaps once a week to document the kitten's development and Max's adaptation to their changing needs." Sarah looked to Michael, who nodded. As long as it doesn't disrupt them, we'd be happy to help with your research. Before leaving, Dr. Wright knelt beside Max, speaking softly to him. You're doing important work, my friend. More important than you know. The golden retriever briefly met her eyes before returning his attention to Hope, who had begun to squirm against his side. After Dr. Wright left, the family discussed her observations over dinner. So Max really is special, Tyler said proudly. Not just any dog would do this. He is special, Sarah agreed. But I think Dr. Wright would say that animals in general are more complex than we often give them credit for. They feel things, they understand things, maybe not exactly like we do, but in their own way. Emma, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. Do you think Max is teaching us something too? Not just about animals, but about caring for others who need help. Michael looked at his daughter with surprise and pride. That's a pretty profound observation, Emma. And yes, I think you're right. Max is showing us all what unconditional love really looks like. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Sarah posted a new update to the thousands of followers now invested in Max and the kitten's journey. She shared some of Dr. Wright's insights along with new photos of the kitten's development. Today we were reminded that the bond between Max and these kittens, especially Hope, is both rare and precious, she wrote. A renowned animal behaviorist told us that Max's care goes beyond instinct to something that looks remarkably like love. Whatever it is, we're grateful to witness it and to share it with all of you who have supported this unexpected journey. As she posted the update, Sarah looked over at Max, who lay curled around his adopted family in their playpen. Hope nestled closest to his heart, her tiny form rising and falling with each breath, a living testament to the power of dedication and care against seemingly impossible odds. The 3-week mark arrived, a critical milestone in kitten development. The transformation was remarkable. Eyes that had been sealed shut were now wide open, taking in the world with curious blue gazes. Tiny legs that had once only squirmed now supported wobbly attempts at walking, and little voices that had merely mewed now produced a variety of sounds from purrs to more insistent cries. They're like different creatures, Sarah marveled, watching the kittens explore their expanded play area, a sectioned-off corner of the living room that allowed them more freedom while keeping them safe. The 4 larger kittens were developing, right on schedule according to Dr. Martinez's guidelines. They had begun playing with each other, batting at toys with uncoordinated paws, tumbling over one another in frisky interactions. And to everyone's joy and amazement, Hope was keeping up, still smaller than her siblings, but every bit as lively. Her heart condition seemingly no longer holding her back. It's like she's determined to prove everyone wrong, Michael said, watching Hope pounce on a small stuffed mouse. The little fighter, Max remained vigilant, though his role was evolving. Rather than providing constant physical contact, he now supervised the kitten's play, stepping in only when necessary. If one wandered too far, he would gently herd it back. If play became too rough, he would separate the participants with a careful nose. And always, he kept a special eye on Hope. He's teaching them, Emma observed, like how he just showed them to use the litter box. It was true. Max had developed a routine of leading each kitten to the shallow litter tray after meals and naps. Though cats were supposed to instinctively use litter, the kittens had taken to it remarkably quickly under Max's guidance. Dr. Wright would say he's modeling behavior for them, Sarah replied, remembering the behaviorist's observations during her weekly visits. Even though he's not a cat, he's showing them how to be good cats. The kittens' distinct personalities were emerging as well. The largest, a gray tabby male they'd named Titan, was bold and adventurous, always the first to investigate new objects or spaces. Lily, a calico female, was graceful and fastidious, spending extra time grooming herself. The two middle-sized kittens, Whisper, a white female with gray patches, and Rocket, a black male with white paws, were the most playful, constantly wrestling with each other. And then there was Hope. The tiny tortoiseshell had developed a quiet determination. What she lacked in size, she made up for in persistence. If her siblings could climb onto the small cushion in their play area, Hope would try again and again until she managed it too. She was also the most attached to Max, following him whenever he moved, sleeping pressed against him when he lay down. "It's like she knows he saved her life," Tyler said, watching Hope trail after Max as he made his rounds of the play area. The children had become increasingly involved in the kitten's care as the constant feeding schedule eased. Emma, at 10, had proven especially capable, helping with feeding, cleaning, and socializing the kittens. Tyler, at 7, needed more supervision, but his gentle nature made him a favorite with the kittens, who would climb into his lap whenever he sat on the floor. "All right, everyone, time for weighing," Sarah announced, bringing out the small kitchen scale and notebook where they tracked each kitten's progress. This had become a daily ritual, each kitten carefully placed on the scale, their weight recorded and compared to previous days. Titan now weighed nearly a pound, the others close behind. Hope had reached 11 ounces, still smaller but steadily gaining. "Hope's gaining faster than the others now," Emma noted, looking at the charts. "She's catching up," Sarah nodded. "Dr. Martinez says that's common with runts. If they make it through the critical period, they often have a growth surge." As Sarah recorded the weights, Michael came into the room, his expression troubled. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "About the kittens." The children immediately looked up, concern on their faces. "They're fine," Michael quickly reassured them. "But they're growing fast. In another few weeks, they'll be ready for adoption." The word hung in the air like a thundercloud. Adoption. Of course, the Petersons had discussed this from the beginning. 5 kittens was too many to keep permanently. But in the daily intensity of keeping them alive, the eventual separation had seemed distant, theoretical. "We can't give them away," Tyler protested, tears immediately filling his eyes. "They're ours." Max would be sad. Emma was quiet, processing the inevitable with more maturity, though her expression showed her own attachment. "We always said we were fostering them," Sarah reminded them gently, helping them until they were ready for permanent homes. "But Hope," Tyler began. "Let's not make any decisions right now," Michael interjected. "They're still young. They need several more weeks with us. We have time to figure this out." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the play area. Hope had managed to climb onto a toy that had collapsed under her weight. She let out a distressed meow, and immediately Max was there, gently lifting her by the scruff and placing her safely on solid ground. The golden retriever then nosed the toy flat, ensuring it wouldn't cause further problems. "See?" Tyler pointed. "Max knows what they need. They need to stay with him." Sarah and Michael exchanged looks. The bond between Max and the kittens, especially Hope, complicated what should have been a straightforward fostering situation. Separating them would be painful for everyone involved. That evening, Dr. Wright made an unscheduled visit, bringing with her a colleague from the university. "This is Dr. Sanchez," she introduced the younger woman. "She specializes in interspecies bonding and communication. I hope you don't mind me bringing her to observe Max and the kittens." Dr. Sanchez watched with fascination as Max demonstrated his caretaking skills. "The level of attunement is extraordinary," she commented. "He's not just mimicking cat behaviors, he's interpreting their needs and responding appropriately. That requires significant cognitive flexibility." "What happens in cases like this?" Sarah asked hesitantly. "When the fostered animals grow up and are separated from their adoptive parent?" The two behaviorists exchanged glances. "It depends," Dr. Wright answered carefully. "In most cases, the bond naturally loosens as the young animals mature and become more independent. But in situations with this level of attachment, there can be grief-like responses from both parties, particularly with the runt Dr. Sanchez, added observing Hope, who was currently curled against Max's side while her siblings played nearby. The attachment there appears to be reciprocal and quite intense. Sarah felt her heart sink. How could they separate Max from Hope when the time came? Yet how could they keep 5 cats when they had never planned on even one? As the experts continued their observations, Sarah noticed Emma sitting quietly in the corner, watching the kittens with a thoughtful expression. "What are you thinking about, sweetie?" she asked, sitting beside her daughter. Emma looked up. "I was thinking about how, when we first found them, we didn't think any of them would live, especially Hope. And now, look at them." She gestured to the active, healthy kittens. "Maybe we shouldn't worry so much about what happens next. Maybe we should just be happy they're all okay now." Sarah hugged her daughter, surprised by her wisdom. "You're right, Emma. One step at a time. For now, they're here, they're thriving, and that's what matters." The kittens turned 4 weeks old, officially entering what Sarah called the adorable chaos phase. They were fully mobile, now racing around their expanded play area on increasingly coordinated legs. They had begun eating solid food, mixed with formula, and were using the litter box consistently. Their play had become more complex, involving pouncing, stalking, and elaborate wrestling matches that often ended with all 5 in a pile of tangled fur. Max had adapted to their increasing independence, giving them more space to explore, but always remaining nearby, always watchful. He seemed particularly pleased when they began eating solid food, sitting beside their shallow dishes with what could only be described as pride. "He's like a parent watching his kids grow up," Michael observed as Max supervised mealtime. Part proud, part a little sad they need him less. The Petersons had settled into a new normal. Sarah had returned to work part-time, while Michael adjusted his home office schedule to ensure someone was always with the kittens. Emma and Tyler had become expert kitten socializers, spending hours playing with them, ensuring they were comfortable with human handling. On a sunny Tuesday morning, Sarah received an email that caught her attention. "My name is Diana Reed." It began, "I'm the executive director of Second Chance Animal Foundation. We've been following Max and the kitten story with great interest. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership that could help many more animals like them." Sarah researched the organization before responding. Second Chance was a well-established, reputable rescue group known for its innovative programs and high adoption success rates. After consulting with Michael, she arranged for Diana to visit that weekend. Diana Reed arrived punctually, a warm, energetic woman in her 50s with a practical handshake and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said, as Sarah welcomed her inside. "What Max has done for these kittens is extraordinary." As they settled in the living room, the kittens immediately captured Diana's attention. She watched them play with the experienced eye of someone who had seen many litters. "They're beautifully socialized," she commented as Titan fearlessly climbed into her lap. "Perfectly on track developmentally. Even the little one, Hope, had indeed made remarkable progress. Though still smaller than her siblings, she was every bit as active and playful. Her heart condition seemed to cause no limitations, though Dr. Martinez continued to monitor her regularly. "So tell me about this partnership you mentioned," Michael prompted as Sarah served coffee. Diana set down her cup, leaning forward slightly. "Max's story has touched thousands of people around the world. We've seen a surge in interest in both dog and cat adoptions since your video went viral. People are inspired by his compassion, his dedication." She pulled out a tablet showing them statistics, spikes in adoption inquiries, shelter donations, and foster applications that correlated with major media coverage of Max and the kittens. "What we're proposing is a fundraising campaign centered around Max's story. Max's Heroes would raise money specifically for medical care for orphaned and at-risk animals like your kittens. We'd also develop educational materials about the special needs of neonatal orphans and the importance of rescue. Sarah and Michael exchanged glances. "We've been careful about commercializing their story," Sarah said cautiously. "We don't want Max or the kittens to be exploited." Diana nodded, understanding. "I completely respect that. This wouldn't be about merchandise or entertainment. It would be about saving lives. The funds would go directly to medical care, foster support, and specialized training for volunteers." She showed them photos of previous rescue cases, a litter of puppies found in a drainage ditch, a pregnant cat rescued from an abandoned building, newborn squirrels whose nest had been destroyed in a storm. "These are the animals we help," Diana explained. "The ones who, like your kittens, need that extra chance at life." Michael considered this. "What exactly would be involved from our end?" "Primarily your blessing and perhaps occasional updates on Max and the kittens' progress. We'd hold a special adoption event when the kittens are ready, featuring Max as the guest of honor. All promotional materials would be approved by you first, of course." The idea was appealing. Using their unexpected situation to help other animals in need seemed like a meaningful way to honor Max's dedication, but Sarah still had concerns. "We haven't decided yet about the kitten's future," she admitted. "Especially Hope. There's a special bond there that we're reluctant to break." Diana's expression softened. "I understand completely. And whatever you decide for any or all of the kittens will be respected. The partnership isn't contingent on particular adoption outcomes." After Diana left, the family gathered for a serious discussion. Even the children were included, given their investment in the kitten's care. "I think we should do it," Emma said decisively. "Max would want to help other animals." Tyler nodded in agreement. "But we keep Hope, right? She's Max's special kitten." Sarah and Michael hadn't yet committed to keeping any of the kittens, but they avoided addressing this directly. "Let's focus on the foundation idea first," Michael suggested. "Does everyone agree it's a good use of Max and the kitten's story?" The vote was unanimous. The Peterson family would partner with Second Chance to help other animals in need. The following weeks brought a flurry of activity. Diana and her team created beautiful promotional materials featuring professional photos of Max and the kittens. Local businesses eagerly signed on as sponsors for the upcoming adoption event. Media coverage renewed with the announcement of Max's Heroes. The kittens continued to thrive, growing more playful and independent each day. They had begun exploring beyond their designated area, requiring constant supervision and frequent rescues from predicaments. Titan was particularly adventurous, once getting himself stuck behind the bookshelf. Whisper and Rocket had developed a fascination with shoelaces, attacking any that came within range. Lily had discovered the joy of climbing and could often be found at the highest accessible point in any room. And Hope, the tiny fighter, had developed an unexpected talent for problem solving. She was often the first to figure out how to open a new toy or access a challenging area. She remained devoted to Max, spending quiet moments curled against him between play sessions. As the kittens approached 6 weeks old, Diana organized a special photo session for the campaign. The photographer specialized in animal portraits and managed to capture the unique personality of each kitten, as well as the special relationship between Max and his adopted family. The resulting images were breathtaking. Max surrounded by his 5 charges, each displaying their distinct character. Titan boldly front and center. Lily posed perfectly, Whisper and Rocket in mid-play. And Hope perched on Max's back, looking at the camera with bright, confident eyes. "These are perfect," Diana declared, reviewing the photos. "They tell the whole story, from vulnerable orphans to thriving kittens, all thanks to one extraordinary dog." The campaign launched with an emotional video combining footage from Sarah's original viral post with new scenes of the kitten's development. It ended with information about the foundation's work and invitation to contribute to Max's Heroes, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Donations poured in from around the world. Local businesses organized fundraising events. The city's largest pet supply store offered to match the first $10,000 in contributions. "I can't believe how generous people are being," Sarah said, as the donation total climbed past $30,000 in the first week. "All because of Max and 5 little kittens." Michael squeezed her hand. "People respond to genuine love. That's what they see in Max. Pure, unconditional love for these little ones who needed him." As they watched the kittens play with Max in the evening sunlight, Sarah realized that whatever decisions lay ahead about the kittens' future, something beautiful and meaningful had already emerged from their unexpected family, a legacy of compassion that would help countless other animals in need. 8 weeks old, the age when kittens typically leave their mother and siblings for new homes, the Petersons could no longer avoid the conversation they'd been postponing. It was time to decide the kitten's future. "They're ready, Doctor," Martinez confirmed during her final checkup visit. "All healthy, all well socialized. Even Hope's heart condition seems stable and manageable." She handed Sarah a stack of medical records. "These will help their new families continue their care appropriately, their new families." The words hung in the air long after the veterinarian had left. That evening, after the children were in bed, Sarah and Michael sat at the kitchen table, mugs of tea growing cold between them. "We need to make a decision," Michael said finally. "The adoption event is scheduled for next weekend." Sarah nodded, watching through the doorway as Max supervised the kittens' evening play session. They were beautiful little cats now, with distinct personalities and habits. Not the fragile newborns they had found that autumn morning. "I know we said from the beginning that we'd find them homes," she began, "but now that it's real..." Michael reached for her hand. "It's harder than we expected." "I get it." He hesitated. "But 5 cats, Sarah, plus Max. That's a lot for our family to take on permanently." Sarah sighed. "I know. Logically, I know. But they feel like ours now." "And what about Max? How will he handle losing them, especially Hope?" The question had been weighing on everyone's minds. Dr. Wright had been observing Max's relationship with the kittens closely, and while she noted that his protective behaviors had naturally decreased as they became more independent, the bond remained strong, particularly with Hope. "We could keep one," Michael suggested. "Maybe Hope, and find loving homes for the others." Before Sarah could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway. "I heard you talking about the kittens," she said quietly. "I can't sleep thinking about them leaving." Sarah patted the chair beside her. "Come sit, honey. We're trying to figure out what's best for everyone." Emma slid into the chair, her expression serious, beyond her 10 years. "I think we should keep Hope," she said decisively. "She and Max need each other." Michael nodded. "We were just discussing that possibility." "But what about the others?" Emma asked. "Titan and Lily and Whisper and Rocket. They're family, too." Sarah pulled her daughter close. "They are sweetie, but having 5 cats is a really big responsibility. The food, the vet care, the space they need. What if we found them really good homes?" Emma suggested. "Like with people we know, then we could still see them sometimes." The idea took root. Perhaps there was a middle path between keeping all 5 and sending them all to strangers. The next morning, Sarah began tentatively reaching out to friends and family who might be interested in adopting a kitten. Their neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, expressed immediate interest in Titan. "That bold boy reminds me of my old tomcat who passed last year," she said, smiling. "And he'd be right next door. You could visit any time." Michael's sister, Claudia, and her husband, who lived across town, were looking for a companion for their older cat. "Whisper might be perfect," Claudia suggested during a video call. "She's gentle enough not to bother our senior girl." Sarah's colleague at the elementary school had recently lost her beloved pet and was cautiously considering a new one. "Lily sounds like she might help heal my heart," she admitted, when Sarah described the fastidious Calico. For Rocket, they identified a potential home with a family in their neighborhood who had 2 cat-loving children around Emma and Tyler's ages. By the week's end, they had potential homes for 4 kittens, all with people they knew and trusted, all within visiting distance. Only hope remained unspoken, for though everyone understood she would be staying with Max and the Petersons, Sarah felt both relief and sadness. The plan made sense, was responsible, considerate of everyone's needs. So why did her heart still ache at the thought of the kittens leaving? The weekend before the scheduled adoption event, the family held what they called a meet and greet, inviting all the potential adopters to spend time with the kittens. Michael made coffee and Sarah served homemade cookies, while Emma and Tyler proudly introduced each kitten, highlighting their unique personalities and preferences. "Titan loves this feather toy the most," Tyler explained to Mrs. Jenkins, "and he likes to sleep up high on the cat tree." Emma was showing Whisper to Aunt Claudia. "She purrs really loud when you pet her under the chin, and she's good." With other cats, she never bothers Max. The matching seemed perfect, each kitten connecting naturally with their potential new family. Only Max seemed troubled. The golden retriever paced anxiously around the room, watching the strangers handle his kittens with obvious concern. When Mrs. Jenkins picked up Titan, Max whined softly, moving to stand beside her, his eyes fixed on the kitten. "He's very protective, isn't he?" Mrs. Jenkins observed. "He raised them," Tyler explained proudly. "They're his babies." Max's distress increased as the afternoon progressed. He tried to herd the kittens away from the visitors, inserting himself between them whenever possible. When the potential adopters finally left, promising to return for the official adoption day, Max immediately gathered all 5 kittens, close checking each one as if ensuring they were unharmed. That night, Tyler burst into tears at bedtime. "We can't give them away, Mom," he sobbed. "Max will be too sad. He loves them." Sarah held her son close, her own eyes filling with tears. "I know, sweetie. This is really hard for all of us. Can't we keep just one more?" Tyler pleaded. 2 kittens isn't that many. The question lingered as Sarah tucked him in. Could they manage 2? Which one would they choose besides Hope? In the living room, Emma was having a similar conversation with Michael. "Dad, I think Max knows something's happening," she said, watching the golden retriever, who lay surrounded by the kittens in their bed. "He seems worried," Michael nodded. "Animals are intuitive. He probably senses the change coming." "Is it fair, though?" Emma asked the difficult question. "We saved these kittens because of Max, and now we're taking them away from him." Michael had no easy answer. "Sometimes the kindest choice isn't the easiest one, Emma. We have to think about what's best for the kittens long term." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She crept downstairs to check on Max and the kittens, finding them all curled together in their usual sleeping arrangement. Hope, as always, was tucked closest to Max's heart, the others arranged around them in a perfect family portrait. The sight brought tears to her eyes. In saving these tiny lives, they had created something beautiful, something that felt wrong to dismantle. Yet, practical reality remained. 5 cats was a lot for any family, especially one that had never planned on having cats at all. Sarah sat on the floor beside them, gently stroking Max's head. "What's the right thing to do, boy?" she whispered. "What would make you happy?" Max opened his eyes briefly, meeting her gaze before shifting slightly to pull Hope closer. The message couldn't have been clearer if he'd spoken aloud. Sarah returned to bed, her mind still troubled. There were no perfect solutions, only difficult choices and the hope that love would be enough to ease the inevitable transitions ahead. The morning of adoption day dawned bright and clear. Sarah awoke with a heaviness in her chest, the reality of what was about to happen settling over her. Today, 4 of the kittens would leave for their new homes after much discussion and Many tears, the family had made their decision. Hope would stay permanently with them and Max. The other four would go to the carefully selected homes they had arranged. It was the most reasonable solution, even if it broke their hearts a little. "Are you ready for this?" Michael asked quietly as they prepared breakfast. Sarah shook her head. "Not really, but I don't think I ever would be." The children were subdued, helping to prepare the kittens' paperwork and favorite toys to send with them. Emma had written detailed care instructions for each kitten, noting their preferences and habits. Tyler had drawn pictures of Max to include in each kitten's going-home package so they remember him, he explained through tears. Max seemed to sense the significance of the day. He was unusually clingy, following Sarah from room to room, whining softly when she moved toward the kittens' area. When she began gathering their supplies, he positioned himself between her and the kittens, his expression pleading. "I know, boy," Sarah whispered, kneeling to embrace him. "I know this is hard." By mid-morning, the first adopter arrived. Mrs. Jenkins came for Titan, bearing a new cat bed and toys. The big gray tabby seemed excited by the attention, unaware of the permanence of this transition. "I promise I'll take wonderful care of him," Mrs. Jenkins assured the family as Titan explored his new carrier. "And you can visit any time. We're just next door after all." Max watched the proceedings with obvious distress, his tail tucked, his body tense. When Mrs. Jenkins picked up Titan's carrier, the golden retriever let out a soft, mournful sound that broke Sarah's heart. "It's okay, Max," Emma soothed, stroking his head. "Titan's going to be happy with Mrs. Jenkins, and we'll see him again." Each departure that followed was equally difficult. Whisper left with Aunt Claudia Rocket, with the neighbor family, and Lily, with Sarah's colleague. Each time, Max's distress increased his behavior, becoming more agitated. He checked the remaining kittens, frequently nosing each one, as if counting, making sure none others had disappeared. By late afternoon, only Hope remained. The tiny tortoiseshell seemed confused by the absence of her siblings, mewing questioningly. As she searched their usual play areas, Max stayed close to her, his vigilance unwavering. "Should we be worried about him?" Michael asked, watching Max guide Hope back to her bed. "He seems really upset," Sarah sighed. Dr. Wright said there would be an adjustment period, that it's normal for him to grieve. That evening, the house felt strangely empty despite still containing the same number of human residents. The absence of the four kittens left a palpable void. Hope seemed subdued, her usual playfulness dimmed as she searched for her siblings. Max refused to eat his dinner, his attention fixed solely on protecting the remaining kitten. "Maybe we made a mistake," Sarah whispered to Michael as they watched Max curl protectively around Hope. "Maybe we should have kept them all." Michael squeezed her hand. "We did what we thought was best. They've gone to loving homes where they'll be cherished. We have to trust that." The first night was the hardest. Max paced the house, searching, whining at the spots where the kittens had played and slept. Hope followed him, seeming equally distressed by the sudden change. The family took turns sitting with them, offering comfort and reassurance. "He misses them," Tyler said tearfully, watching Max's restless movements. "He thinks he did something wrong." Morning brought little improvement. Max was listless, Hope unusually quiet. Sarah called Dr. Wright, explaining the situation. "Grief takes time," the behaviorist advised. "For now, maintain normal routines, offer extra affection, and be patient. It will get easier, but don't expect an overnight adjustment." Sarah took the day off work, staying home to comfort both Max and Hope. She set up video calls with each adopter, showing Max that the kittens were safe and settling in. Whether he understood or not, the sight of the kittens seemed to calm him slightly. By the third day, a new pattern began to emerge. Max's focus on Hope intensified, their bond seemingly strengthened by the absence of the others. They were rarely apart, Max guiding the kitten through her day, Hope seeking his comfort and companionship. "They're becoming a team," Emma observed watching as Hope pounced on a toy and carried it proudly to Max. Like they're figuring out how to be a family of two. A week after the adoptions, Diana from the Second Chance Foundation visited to check on Max and Hope. "This is actually quite common," she reassured the family after observing the pair. "When litters are separated, often the remaining animals form stronger bonds. Max has redirected all his parental energy toward Hope." She suggested arranging reunions with the other kittens. Not too often at first while they're all still adjusting, but regular visits might help ease the transition for everyone. Taking this advice, the Petersons organized the first reunion 2 weeks after the adoptions. Each family brought their kitten for a Saturday afternoon visit. The kittens had grown noticeably in just 2 weeks, their personalities continuing to develop in their new homes. Max's reaction to seeing them again was complex. Initial excitement followed by confusion as he tried to herd them all back to their old play area. Hope seemed overjoyed, racing around with her siblings as if they'd never been apart. "Titan is doing wonderfully," Mrs. Jenkins reported as they watched the kittens play. "He sleeps on my pillow every night. Such a comfort to have him there." Similar positive reports came from the other adopters. Whisper had befriended Claudia's older cat, the two often grooming each other. Rocket had become the neighborhood children's favorite playmate. Lily had helped heal her new owner's grief, bringing joy back into a home that had been somber for too long. As the afternoon progressed, Sarah noticed a subtle shift in Max's behavior. He still watched the kittens carefully, but seemed less anxious, less desperate to keep them together. When the visitors prepared to leave, he didn't show the same distress he had on adoption day. "I think he understands now," Michael observed. "They're okay, they're happy." He can see that. After the other kittens had gone, Max and Hope settled together in their favorite spot. The golden retriever seemed more peaceful than he had since the adoptions. Hope curled against his side, purring loudly. That night, as Sarah checked on them before bed, she found them sleeping contentedly. Max opened one eye as she approached, but didn't move from his position. Hope nested securely against him. "You did good, boy," Sarah whispered, stroking his soft head. "You saved them all, gave them a chance at life. Now they're spreading that love to other homes, just like you spread yours to them." Max sighed, deeply seeming to understand. His mission had evolved, but not ended. Hope still needed him, and he would continue to be her protector, her family, her anchor. Different from what had been, but beautiful in its own right. 6 months passed, bringing changes to the Peterson household. Hope had grown from a tiny, vulnerable kitten into a sleek young cat with striking tortoiseshell markings and bright, intelligent eyes. Though still smaller than average, her heart condition caused no limitations on her energy or activities. She had become an integral part of the family, her playful spirit and affectionate nature winning everyone's hearts. Max had adjusted beautifully to his role as Hope's sole companion. Their bond had only strengthened with time, evolving from caretaker and orphan to something more like equals, devoted friends who understood each other in ways no one else could. They slept curled together, played elaborate games of chase, and even seemed to communicate through a language of subtle movements and expressions. "It's like they're having conversations," Emma often remarked, watching their silent exchanges. If them all. Max's Heroes campaign had exceeded all expectations. What had begun as a local fundraising effort had expanded nationally, then internationally. The shelter wing funded by the campaign was nearing completion, a state-of-the-art facility, specifically designed for orphaned and special needs animals. "We're calling it the Max Wing," Diana announced during a visit to the Peterson home. It seems only fitting. The impact of Max's story continued to ripple outward in unexpected ways. Dr. Wright and her colleagues had published a paper on interspecies caregiving, featuring Max and the kittens as their primary case study. Animal rescue organizations reported increased interest in fostering and adoption, particularly for animals with special needs. People seemed inspired by the golden retriever who had defied natural instincts to care for orphaned kittens. "You've started something remarkable," Diana told Sarah. "Something that's changing how people view animal relationships and rescue." 1. Spring morning, Sarah received a call that would open yet another chapter in Max and Hope's journey. "Mrs. Peterson, this is Grace Williams from Bright Horizons Children's Hospital. I'm the director of their therapy animal program. I'm calling because we've heard about Max and Hope and their extraordinary story." The hospital was interested in training Max and Hope as therapy animals to visit sick children. "Animals with special stories often connect most deeply with our patients," Grace explained, "especially those facing long-term illness or difficult recoveries. We think Max and Hope could be particularly meaningful to these children." Sarah discussed the idea with Michael and the children. It would mean training sessions, evaluation visits, a significant time commitment, she explained. "But think of the children they could help," Emma said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Kids who are scared or sick or lonely, Max and Hope could make them feel better." Tyler nodded solemnly. Hope was sick too. She knows what it's like. The decision was unanimous. Max and Hope would train to become therapy animals. The process was rigorous, requiring temperament, testing, health certifications, and specialized training. Max sailed through the evaluations, his gentle nature and impeccable behavior marking him as an ideal therapy dog. Hope required more specific training, as therapy cats were less common, but her adaptability and calm demeanor served her well. 6 weeks later, Max and Hope made their first official visit to Bright Horizons. They entered the colorful pediatric ward, Max walking proudly in his therapy vest, Hope secure in her specialized carrier. The staff had prepared the children for their visit, sharing the story of the dog who had saved 5 orphaned kittens. "Are they really here?" a small voice called from one of the rooms. "The dog and his kitten?" 10-year-old Lily, no relation to the kitten of the same name, sat up in her hospital bed, her pale face lighting up as Max and Hope entered her room. Lily was undergoing treatment for leukemia, her body frail from chemotherapy, but her spirit still bright. "This is Max, Sarah," introduced gently, "and this is Hope. Would you like to meet them?" Lily nodded eagerly, holding out a thin hand. Max approached the bed with perfect gentleness, resting his head on the edge where Lily could reach him. Hope was released from her carrier, and after a cautious assessment of the room, jumped lightly onto the bed, settling beside the girl with a rumbling purr. "She's so pretty," Lily whispered, stroking Hope's soft fur, "and Max is so big and gentle." She looked up at Sarah. "Is it true he saved her when she was sick?" Sarah nodded. Hope was the smallest kitten, very weak, with a heart problem. The veterinarian wasn't sure she would survive, but Max never gave up on her. He stayed by her side day and night. "Just like my mom does for me," Lily said softly. That first visit was followed by many others. Max and Hope became regular visitors to the Children's Hospital, bringing comfort and joy to young patients facing difficult treatments and long hospitalizations. Their story resonated especially with children dealing with serious illness, offering hope and inspiration. "The therapy team tells me Max and Hope have a unique ability to connect with our most withdrawn patients," Grace reported after several months. "There's something about their bond that speaks to the children on a deep level." Beyond the hospital, Max and Hope began making appearances at community events related to animal welfare. They visited nursing homes, schools, and community centers. Everywhere they went, their story touched hearts and opened minds about the depth of animal relationships and the importance of compassion. Letters and emails poured in from people who had been inspired by Max and the kittens. A family in Australia had adopted a senior dog after seeing Max's story. A classroom in Japan had raised money for their local animal shelter, naming their fundraiser Max's Friends. A children's author had written a picture book based on Max and Hope's journey. "It's overwhelming sometimes," Sarah admitted to Diana during a visit to the nearly completed Max Wings. "To think that one morning of finding kittens in our backyard could lead to all this." Diana smiled, watching as Max and Hope explored the new facility. That's how compassion works. It spreads, it grows, it inspires others. The monthly reunions with the other kittens had continued, each one a joyful occasion. Titan, Whisper, Rocket, and Lily had grown into beautiful adult cats thriving in their adoptive homes. They still recognized Max, greeting him with obvious affection during their visits. And the sibling bond between the 5 cats remained intact. Their play resuming as if no time had passed. "I think we made the right decision," Michael said, watching the reunion play out in their backyard. "They're all loved, all thriving. And look at the good that's come from it." Sarah nodded, leaning against his shoulder. "And to think we almost didn't follow Max that morning. We almost missed all of this." Across the yard, Max sat contentedly watching as Hope played with her siblings. The golden retriever's expression was peaceful, proud. A guardian whose mission had expanded in ways no one could have predicted. From saving 5 tiny lives to inspiring compassion in countless others. That evening, after the visitors had left and the house was quiet, Sarah found Max and Hope in their favorite spot by the living room window. The setting sun bathed them in golden light as they sat side by side, watching the world outside. Guardian and saved soul companion and friend. A reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism begin with the simplest acts of compassion. 1 year to the day after Max had dragged his blanket into the backyard, the Peterson family gathered for a special celebration. "Gotcha Day," Emma had called it, marking the anniversary of when 5 tiny kittens had entered their lives and changed everything. The backyard was festively decorated with streamers and a banner reading "Happy Gotcha Day." A table held treats for both humans and animals, including a special cake made of tuna for the cats and homemade peanut butter biscuits for Max. All 5 kittens, now adult cats, were in attendance, brought by their adoptive families for the reunion. "I can't believe it's been a whole year," Sarah remarked, watching as the 5 cats explored the yard. They had all grown into stunning adults, each with their own distinct personality, but still bearing traces of the tiny orphans they had once been. Titan had become enormous, as his name suggested, a magnificent gray tabby with a regal bearing, who still maintained his bold, adventurous spirit. Whisper remained delicate and sweet, her gray and white coat gleaming in the sunlight. Rocket lived up to his name with boundless energy, racing around the yard in joyful bursts. Lily was elegant and poised, her calico markings more vibrant than ever, and Hope. Though still the smallest, she had blossomed into a beautiful tortoiseshell with bright, intelligent eyes and a confident demeanor. The heart condition that had threatened her life as a kitten had stabilized, requiring only annual checkups. She moved with grace and purpose, often looking to Max for approval or companionship. The golden retriever sat in the center of the yard, watching his former charges with obvious pride. At 8 years old, Max had a touch of gray around his muzzle now, but his eyes were bright and alert, his devotion to Hope unwavering. "It's like he's showing off his kids at a graduation," Michael joked as Max supervised the cat's activities. The celebration had drawn quite a crowd. Diana and her team from Second Chance Foundation, Dr. Martinez, who had helped save Hope's life, Dr. Wright, who had documented Max's extraordinary caregiving. Even a few families from the Children's Hospital had been invited, children whose lives had been touched by Max and Hope's therapy visits. "We have something to share with everyone," Diana announced midway through the party. "Thanks to Max's heroes, we've been able to save over 300 orphaned animals this year alone. Animals who, like these 5, might not have had a chance. Otherwise, She unveiled a plaque that would hang in the newly opened Max wing. It featured a beautiful photo of Max with all 5 kittens along with the words, "Compassion knows no boundaries," in honor of one extraordinary dog who taught us all what it means to care. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering as Diana presented the Petersons with a smaller version of the plaque to keep at home. As the afternoon progressed, the adoptive families shared updates and stories. Mrs. Jenkins reported that Titan had appointed himself neighborhood watch cat, monitoring the comings and goings from her front window. Aunt Claudia's Whisper had become best friends with her older cat, the two now inseparable. Rocket had learned to play fetch, rivaling many dogs with his retrieving skills. Lily had helped her owner through a difficult year, providing comfort and companionship when it was needed most. "They're all such wonderful cats," Sarah observed. "It's hard to believe they were once so fragile, we weren't sure they'd survive the night." As the celebration continued, Sarah noticed Max becoming restless. The golden retriever kept moving to the far corner of the yard near the garden shed, sniffing intently, then returning to Hope, as if trying to communicate something. After watching this behavior repeat several times, Sarah followed him, curious about what had captured his attention. "What is it, boy?" she asked, as Max led her to the shed. "What do you smell?" Max pawed at the ground near the shed's foundation, the same spot where they had found evidence of the kitten's mother a year earlier. Sarah knelt, examining the area more closely. To her surprise, she found fresh paw prints in the soft dirt, small but distinct. "Michael," she called softly, "come look at this." Her husband joined her, followed by Emma and Tyler. "Cat prints," Michael confirmed. "Recent ones, too. Do you think?" Emma began, her eyes widening. Before she could finish, Max suddenly tensed, his attention fixed on the side gate which had been left ajar for guests. In the opening stood a thin calico cat, her wary eyes fixed on the gathering. Despite her caution, her swollen belly was clearly visible. "She's pregnant, Sarah," whispered. "Very pregnant." Max's reaction was immediate and unexpected. He trotted into the house through the back door, returning moments later with something in his mouth, his favorite blanket, the same one he had used a year ago for the kittens. The family watched in amazement as Max carefully arranged the blanket in a sheltered corner of the yard, then looked expectantly at the pregnant calico. The message couldn't have been clearer. Here is safety, here is help. The calico hesitated, clearly torn between fear and need. Hope, sensing the significance of the moment, approached the nervous cat, slowly, non-threateningly. She stopped a respectful distance away and simply sat watching the newcomer with calm acceptance. "History repeating itself," Dr. Wright murmured, watching the scene unfold. "But this time, they're prepared." Gradually, cautiously, the pregnant cat entered. The yard giving the humans a wide berth, but approaching the blanket Max had prepared. She sniffed it thoroughly, then looked at Max with what seemed like careful consideration. "She's deciding if she can trust him," Diana explained softly. "This is extraordinary." After what seemed like an eternity, the calico settled tentatively onto the blanket, her exhaustion evident. Max remained at a respectful distance, watching protectively, but not crowding her. Hope positioned herself nearby, a living example that care and safety awaited. "What do we do?" Tyler whispered, excitement and concern mingling in his voice. Sarah and Michael exchanged looks. "We help her," Sarah said simply, "just like we did before." Diana was already on her phone arranging for a veterinary visit. Dr. Martinez offered immediate assistance. The Second Chance team began gathering supplies. What had been a celebration of the past was transforming into preparation for the future. As twilight fell on the gathering, the pregnant calico remained on Max's blanket, watching the activity. Around her, with cautious interest, the other 4 cats had been collected by their families with promises to stay updated on the new development. Only Hope remained beside Max, both keeping a protective vigil over their unexpected guest. Full circle. Michael said softly, wrapping his arm around Sarah as they watched. 1 year later, almost to the hour, Sarah leaned against him. You think Max somehow knew that this would happen again? Michael shook his head in wonder. I don't know, but I do know that some things are meant to be. Some connections are too powerful to be coincidental. As stars appeared in the evening sky, the Peterson family sat together on their porch, watching as Max settled beside his blanket guardian once more to new life about to enter the world. Hope curled nearby, a living testament to what love and dedication could accomplish. You know what this means, right? Emma said, breaking the contemplative silence. More kittens to name, Tyler grinned, and more stories to tell. Sarah smiled, watching Max's profile in the gathering darkness, his posture alert and protective, yet peaceful. 1 year ago, he had changed their lives with a simple act of compassion. Now he prepared to do it again, teaching them all that the greatest gifts often come in unexpected moments, requiring nothing more than an open heart and the courage to follow when called. So it begins again, she whispered. Max's next chapter.